So I played all the Half-Lives? The title isn't important, considering it doesn't have anything to do with the actual game. It's literally just supposed to invoke emotions of scientific grandeur into your... Anyway, I played every game in the Half-Life series, and if you're one of those people who can't watch more than 30 seconds of a video, I'll give you a quick review of the entire series. They're pretty good. If they are on sale, or you already have them for whatever reason, give them a try on a day your internet turns off, or use them as a way to introduce someone who has never played a first-person shooter to the genre. If I had to recommend only one, Half-Life 2, hands down. For those who want to stay and hear what I have to say, I have a slight disclaimer. I'm going to make this disclaimer in every video I upload onto this channel from now on. I play games for the gameplay. I couldn't give a shit about the story for the most part. And the majority of the reason I enjoy gaming at all is expanding my capabilities mechanically. Whenever I make this distinction, I seem to get a swath of upturned noses telling me I'm enjoying games wrong, or one of the reasons gaming is declining in quality for idiotic ADHD empty brain dopamine seeking iPad kids like me. And to that I say, yeah, probably. My bad. I love games, and having a media you can interact with while experiencing it is rare outside of games. Aside from that, it means I'm going to be giving a primarily gameplay review of everything. You know, the five senses experience. How things sound, how they feel, how they look, shit like that. If you were coming here for deep lore analysis, or a dive into every scientist's best line, you should probably seek out someone else, as I strongly believe in the saying, gameplay is king. Enough wasting your time. Let's get right on to... Half-Life is one of the games of all time. If I were to average my general feelings on the game, they would lean positive. There was a lot of Half-Life I enjoyed thoroughly. From the sounds of the music to the nostalgic graphics of the pre-2000s, it was a trip for sure. And I would enjoy a game that looked and sounded like this even if it was made today. Not to mention the voice acting in this game is wonderful. You'll primarily be speaking to security and scientists, but even through the fog of the bit-crushed recordings, it was wonderful to listen to, and really put me in the era the game was made. With all that out of the way, the controls and movement in Half-Life are terrible, especially compared to modern day games. Gold Source is apparently notorious for having shoddy movement you need hundreds of hours to get used to, and let me tell you, I do not have those hundreds of hours. A good half of this game is shooting, the other half is navigation. I divided navigation into two sections I shall dub jumps and stumps. Jumps are the platforming sections of the game. These include simple parkour situations, just making it across areas with the correct amount of speed, or something as simple as swimming up or climbing up the right ladder. There is even the occasional, and by occasional I mean literally once, jump where you're lifted by a fan and have to navigate to a central hub in the ceiling. Pretty cool by today's standards, but very cool for 1998. On the other side of the stumps, puzzles and switches and levers, oh my god, I want to die. The puzzles in this game are for the most part fine. Not like fine as in they do the job. I mean fine like when you text your girlfriend an idea you thought was a compromise, but they don't quite see it that way. So they send you a fine with a capital F at the bow and a period at the stern. That's a three-part joke, don't think about it too hard. I often found myself lost for minutes at a time because I didn't see a little plank of wood I was supposed to break, or I missed a small 2D button or lever on the wall that blended in with all the painted on ones. I have no issues with a good puzzle. I love me a good thinker. Anything from The Witness to COD Zombies Easter eggs can get me hooked for hours. But what Half-Life seems to deliver is the suggestion of a puzzle. The mere hint of the promise of a puzzle. The fucking LaCroix of puzzles at every turn of every level. There are certainly some puzzles I quite enjoyed, such as shooting these little signs to make the cart go the right way, or noticing this needs power, so you have to go wander off to find a way to power it, or seeing that you need to scan the proper authorities' eyes to get into an area, so you have to figure out a way to safely escort certain NPCs to open certain doors. There actually was this neat one where I had to send an airstrike to the right door to unlock the next area, but it didn't work so well, so it got points deducted. To some of you, these don't even sound like puzzles, and I would have to agree. They feel like micro objectives that are so basic I am 2 seconds away from just considering them game mechanics or part of the platforming. However, this game ties them directly to progression, so by definition it felt like the most apt word to summarize them. A lot of the time, jumps and stumps work together to create a unique experience, all of which were pretty forgettable and felt extremely basic. Were they most likely revolutionary at the time? For sure, but I'm a spoiled Zoomer gamer, and I already made the Model T analogy in my last video, so... Bro, did I actually put the shrug emoji in the script? How do you even pronounce that? There was the even more occasional scenario where the game would combine all three, being the jump and the stump with the shooting mechanic. These were some of the more memorable situations, and I do give credit to this one. You essentially have to guide this beast to his own death by baiting him to different areas while fighting off aliens in the military, and also trying to figure out how to turn the power on. Entering as a third party and shooting two separate factions while navigating areas and turning on power all sounds like a pretty good combo, and it was. Except for the terrible, not good, very bad elevators and random bugs that kept turning me into low poly goo. Every time I'm prepared to give this game some points, they decide to take the fast track up my colon and straight into the shit. Speaking of shit, I need to talk about the shooting in this game, or more importantly, the weapons. Starting with the crowbar. It's the very first weapon you use, and you'll be relying on it throughout your entire playthrough. It's fantastic. Mediocre damage, but has unlimited ammo, and it's quick as hell. Then there's the pistol, which is mid, and falls off the second you get the submachine gun, since they use the same ammo. However, both are second rate. They are so inaccurate inaccurate, you end up feeling like you're an IGN reviewer trying to shoot anything more than pissing distance away. The sub gets the job done, and honestly, your workhorse throughout a lot of the game. I will say the grenade launcher on it is awesome. The shotgun sucks unless the person you're trying to Persona 3 is currently licking the firing pin. The crossbow shoots lethargic tubes of string cheese, more interested in obscuring your view than giving you a good time. The Hornet gun is made for people who hate themselves, and no one else. Grenades are actually pure comedy, laser trip mines are made for a different game, satchel charges are a gimmick, and the Snark, aka Little Jimmy's, end up doing more damage to the user than whatever's on the other end of the hallway you thought you big brain. The only weapons worth your time are the RPG, the glue-on gun, and the Magnum. The RPG because it's pretty awesome, actually. They give you tons of ammo throughout the entire game, and it has a laser tracker on it. And the Magnum, well, because, you know, it does the one thing the game is goddamn terrified of, actually hitting where you're aiming. Well, I suppose you could also count the Tau cannon, but I forgot that thing even existed considering how much better its brother is while using the same ammo. Want fun? Use the glue-on gun. This gun is pure bliss. My walnut brain that loves to track enemies had a blast using this genuine pre-2000s op power washer. It's like a fully charged nano-boosted Zarya, and it's the only gun in the game that makes tryhard aiming worth it. Now that you know where the weapons stand and how they feel, I can put into context that the shooting in this game feels terrible. There is minuscule feedback other than the occasional blood splatter, or when you start shooting some of the military guys, they run. It feels bad. The fact that you can't turn off mouse acceleration is crazy. The tiny micro movements high-level players perform while aiming don't match up, because the conversion is like trying to measure the weather outside in inches using metric. And to top it all off, none of the enemies have momentum, so they can move in any direction they want whenever they want to, making projectile weapons essentially useless past the average length of a chamber's ego. And don't even get me started with the grenades. Do you want a full-speed conveyor belt strategy to make me hate your game? Give your projectiles inheritance. Boom. I hate it. For those of you who don't know what inheritance is, I'll give you a 30-second summary. When a projectile is launched in any capacity from the player character, in this case Gordon, whether it be from a weapon or hand-thrown device, in this case throwing a grenade, inheritance makes it so whatever velocity the player character holds is inherited by the object launched. For example, if I throw a grenade that travels 2 miles an hour and I'm going 5 miles an hour, the grenade now goes 7 miles an hour. Really easy stuff. This can be looked at as cool from a game design perspective. However, the downside comes when you go in any other direction than a perfectly straight line. If you go diagonal or you go from side to side while throwing, your throw is ruined. Call it whatever you want and make as many excuses as your lungs allow, but above all, it just isn't fun. For those who want more info, I'm putting an article in the description that mirrors my thoughts very well. Now, I am not one to shy away from lore explanations for why things are dumb in video games. So Gordon being this inexperienced scientist thrown into a fight or flight scenario could be an explanation to why things are the way they are, like why he sucks at moving and shooting. However, the reason this mechanic is only used in gimmick missions is that it's not fun. It's something you have to temporarily deal with so you immediately understand something's off. It's a plot device, a gimmick. Now imagine that stretched over a whole game. And it's not like this game shies away from shooting. As I explained earlier, there's some great guns in this game that make you feel like it was actually made for someone with hands. But you spend far too little time actually using the guns that make left click worth pushing. The enemies don't make it any better. The primitive AI is heavy and bogs down encounters even more. I actually liked a lot of the military encounters. Those guys could be smart at times, and the ninjas were really cool. Not to mention helicopters were actually pretty fun. But the aliens are god awful. The head grabs are so basic and literally only consist of jumping at you. The Vorts are essentially Minecraft skeletons. The e-girls are so easy to kill. The spitter things are rare enough I almost forgot they were in the game. Grunts and controllers could be cool, but by the time you get to them, you're decked out with so much gear, they're little to no issue. Then there are two bosses. I don't count this thing as a boss. Maybe a mini-boss. This thing and this thing. Both were so immensely infuriating, my brain wanted to delete the info minutes after I was done with them. On the one hand, the game kept ruining save files for just this boss fight, so I had to keep doing the same unfun fight 3 times to really drill in how much I hate it. And the final boss in this game is not fun for 2 very large reasons. 1, the movement and strafe controls in this engine are terrible. And 2, by the time I got to him, I was so sick of this game's bullshit, I just wanted it over. I purposely left sound design as the last thing I wanted to touch on because of how little I have to say about it. I really enjoyed it. The ambient noises are unsettling, firefights feel full and chaotic, things sound great in this game. I have no complaints, and the few times there actually is music, it bangs. Also, I'm giving it a bit of leniency, half because the game is old, so they couldn't have done too much, and half because the sounds are so damn iconic, it felt like pouring liquid childhood toy commercial straight into my temporal lobe. Half-Life 1 gets a 5 out of 10, perfectly middle of the road. I know this opinion will bring out the ops, but that's perfect timing, considering the next game is I make sure not to look at reviews for the games I play. Sometimes, depending on what people in chat say or if I catch a glimpse of the Steam page while purchasing, I can't help it. However, I truly went into this game with a single preconception. I was the only one shooting it. That alone got me worried, but I dove in head first, looking for more Half-Life, and honestly, more of the same. God, were my expectations immediately smashed. This game is great, like goddamn fantastic. I knew from the second I started the training tutorial, this was gonna be a banger. Alright, I'm just gonna hop straight into it. Gonna hop straight into it.
Rise and shine, ladies! My name is Senior Drill Instructor Dwight T. Barnes. The first and last words I want to hear out of your stinking holes is, sir, do I make myself clear?
Sir, yes, sir. Immediately, the tone is so different than the first game. You are a soldier, period. You're not special or an extra cool, strong soldier. Nothing like that. Maybe a bit luckier than the average guy, but nonetheless, you're a run-of-the-mill, boots on the ground, Call of Duty man. And wow, did a lot of the issues I had with the first game get solved with that fact alone. The game felt confused in what they wanted Gordon to be, and in turn, what they wanted me to be. Your character feels strong, tall, and able to handle himself. Gone is the slippery movement that made every jump feel like an ice level. The game came out only a year after the first, and let me assure you, they spent every second of that year improving the recipe bit by bit. I did not think having multiple melee weapons would be a good thing in Half-Life, but I really enjoyed how they used them. The knife was legit awesome to use, and made me feel like I had been trained to use it, which I had been. If you played this game, you should, by the way. It was only like 5 hours and dirt cheap. Definitely do the tutorial. It's a blast and has so much character. The most out of all the Gold Source Half-Lives by far. Also, sound design is the same as the first game, with even better voice acting. The guns feel good, great even, and much better than the first game. The sniper was a standout for me, without a doubt an S tier. This game actually suffered from a case of too much of a good thing though. Adding an additional 9 guns on top of the already pretty full roster. They didn't bring back the Magnum, crossbow, or crowbar, but not getting those in this story made sense. There was no fish pit, I saw almost no cops, and why would I need a crowbar if I already had my trusty wrench and knife combo? Having the choice to go heavy or light is one of my favorite things when it comes to melee combat, especially when you can switch it up on the fly. When you hit right click, the pipe wrench had this sick overhead heavy attack that swung with a satisfying thud to ruin boxes and enemies alike. The knife was fast and smooth, making weaving in between different enemies or in and out of combat fantastic. If a game gives me a knife, I use it. I like knives. I don't really know why. Spoiler alert, this game gives you a grappling hook? Yeah, sure, it's jank, but it works. This is 1999 for God's sake. No idea how they managed rope swinging before the towers fell. I was more than impressed. The Desert Eagle replaced the Magnum here, and this thing felt amazing. Bigger clip and a laser sight. Couldn't have asked for more. Total glow up. They just straight up added an M249. But the ammo was so rare, it felt more like a temporary power up than a weapon. Still, loads of fun. The sniper rifle is what the crossbow dreams of being one day. And something about quickscoping in a game that came out when I was 1 feels fantastic. The Spore launcher was, well, weird, but it did great damage, and the ammo was plentiful. 2 thumbs up. The cockroach is the gun I forgot about so hard, I thought it was an enemy when I was looking back at the wiki for reference. Speaking of which, the last 2 guns I mentioned are actually alive. The grappling hook too. Apparently, when the rift between worlds happened, it wasn't just Earth and Zen. Many different worlds leaked into Earth, and presumably one another. There are quite a few Race X enemies in the game, but they effectively have similar or the same AI and hitboxes to the enemies we have already come across. Oh, I nearly forgot, the last weapon. The the displacer cannon. This thing decimates rooms, and it's a blast to use. It also has this weird ability where you use its alternate fire, and it like sends you to another dimension. Sometimes this was great, and it would give me free healing, and sometimes it would send me into a fish pit where I would almost die. But I play gacha games, so I love the Gamba. I used it a lot just to see what would happen. Moving through the game felt great. I rarely, if ever, found myself lost, which I cannot say about essentially all of the other games. It also felt balanced in difficulty for once. Never too hard or easy, the Goldilocks of keeping my brain engaged. There's also a lot of boys to bring along. You and the boys mowing down hallways of aliens feels great, except for if you shoot one. They will retaliate. Don't ask me how I know. The puzzles felt great, and you can see Valve was really in their groove, consistently mixing puzzles with platforming and enemies all at once, often. They also know just when to send an absolute horde at you to keep the blood pumping going. The final boss was pretty cool. Nothing crazy, but I liked it. It just sucks they shamelessly stole from Borderlands, which came out 10 years later. I rate Half-Life Opposing Force a 7 out of 10. It was a great game, for sure a highlight of the entire Half-Life series, and my 3rd favorite of the bunch. Considering they could have just rushed out a sequel and blew their opportunity in the spotlight, they really popped off. Speaking of blue, let's move on to... This game was terrible. Everything wrong with Half-Life condensed into one barely 3-hour long experience. If I wanted to speedrun the game, I might be able to do it in under an hour, which looking back on, I'm glad, because I hated this game. Without a doubt the worst in all the Half-Lives. The movement was somehow even more terrible. Most of the game is out of combat puzzles. They brought back none of the creativity from the previous title, and the game was often so slow, I found myself autopiloting, just waiting for it all to be over. By the way, if you were just wondering to yourself, damn, the music sounds the same as the last game, that's because it is the same music. They used the same soundtrack. There was no challenge in this game literally ever. The parts of the last two games where you just kind of wander around looking for a button or lever is honestly just this entire game. There's also this part I was stuck on for over an hour because the AI kept breaking and making me think I was making the wrong choice. It would have been a lot longer if someone from chat didn't inform me that I was right and the game was just bugging. There was even this short Zen section where they made absolute sure to put the smallest bits of geometry in the way, and always at the end of platforms, so the engine could perform its King Midas gold source magic on you, aka sending you directly into the abyss faster than Elon's kids going to City Hall on their 18th birthday. Also, there is something I have yet to talk about that permeates throughout all of the Half-Life game: quick saving. The autosaves and checkpoints in almost all of these games are horrible. Some of the worst I've ever seen in gaming. Just spent the last 5 minutes looting an area after a fun little gunfight. Oops, guess you missed an insta-kill mechanic right after the fight, so you have to do it all over again. I went on a rant about it nearly half the games, and I ended up binding quick save and quick load on my arrow keys because I use them so often. Which brings me to another thing. There are so many instant kill mechanics in literally all of these games. For the most part, when you're placed in an arena, you could expect to use the ammo you collected and the skills you acquired to get out. I rarely found myself in a situation truly stuck where I couldn't use my gamer skills to outrun and gun the opposition. But this game loves to just instant kill you with the most random bullshit, making you feel like undeserved deaths are the only deaths. This game had far more jumps and stumps than the last one, and even though this game was about 4 times shorter than the first game, I was stuck on it about twice as much. But dear lord, this doesn't compare to the amount of instant kill bullshit that happens in every game. The ceiling falling in, tanks exploding while you're standing on top of them, a bombing you couldn't have possibly known was coming, random geometry glitches, whatever the fuck this is. What? Bro, it's consistent. And does it? It's not even hitting it, it's just being on top of a certain point. Okay. This game wants you dead in any way it can, and if you aren't dying by enemies, which I rarely did, they just instant kill you and punish you for daring to start up the floppy dick this game is. This is prominent throughout all the games, but for sure the first 3 have it worse. While we're on the topic of rando bullshit that adds up and pisses me off, this one is small but happens so often. Because most of the time you're moving from place to place in a vent or small hallway, when I kill something, why does it take 3 full seconds to despawn the dead body? I kill, and then I have to patiently wait my turn to be able to move through the vent or hallway again. Corpses take up the original hitbox of the body too, so you can't even jump over it. Even this little guy in the vent gets me stuck and I hate it. Shit happens like 50 times a game. And we'll be forgetting it exists to quell my heartburn exactly 12 seconds after this review goes up. Your dementia tends to get to you, it's fine. I understand. I'm an understandable guy. This game fucking blows, dude. Like, don't play this one if you like fun or being happy. 3 out of 10. I would have given it a 2 out of 10 if it wasn't for this cool little puzzle where you have to read the environment and act on it. For some reason, this specific puzzle felt new and fresh, and I want it more like this. Unlike the other puzzles, which make my brain feel like it's decaying from boredom. Speaking of decay, let's move on to... Half-Life Decay was a PS2 exclusive released in 2001. It was co-op only, and never released on Steam in any form by Valve. However, a fan group has been remaking the game from the ground up on Steam, and has even been hard at work assuring the game can be completed solo. Or in other words, they have reworked the puzzle so you no longer need a second character to complete the game. He's bringing it to the ease of the Steam launcher, making it way more accessible. As of now, the full game isn't out. However, the free demo is out, and that's what I played for this session. I can't give a full review, obviously, because the full game isn't out yet. However, what I can say is this. The game shows some serious promise. If the developers over at Team Solo continue with this level of polish, they'll have a banger on their hands. The shooting feels pretty fluid. The puzzles you can tell are made for 2 people, but because of the way they made it possible to complete them alone, it feels like you're a speedrunner breaking the system, which I enjoy immensely. I am very excited to see where the project goes. I am leaving a link in the description if you want to try it out. It's a great time, and again, only takes about an hour to charge through. I can't give it a full score because it's still a work in progress, but I can at least give it a thumbs up and recommend giving it a wish list if you're a Half-Life fan. Control's still kinda sticky though, unlike the buttery movement in what a full game. The massive variety of game mechanics, environments, weapons, enemies, characters, everything got some serious TLC from the devs, jam-packed with as much as you wanted. Not to mention, this game has one of my favorite things in gaming. While the goals you have to complete are rigid, for example, get here to save this person, the way you do them, for the most part, were rather flexible. Yeah, leaving an arena open to frag in any way you want is nice, but being able to ignore these parts of the game, just because you thought, what if? Oh, the Combine are taking too long coming to step on your mine you planted? Just pick it up and throw it at them. There is this entire horror mission? Let's call it a horror mission. That was out of this world. I could not believe the amount of ways this game lets you frag. It felt like the game really let me complete it how I wanted. I mean, look at this. This is entirely optional. I am beating people with a large metal crate on the end of a crane, having a goddamn blast doing so. Games that give you this level of flexibility are almost instantly a 6 or a 7 out of 10 for me, and anything else is bonus points. Let's continue. So something I didn't notice until chat pointed it out was the fact that except for the endings of the games, Half-Life doesn't really do cutscenes, which sounds cool in theory, because it means if you want nothing to do with the cutscenes, you don't need to worry about them. However, what this effectively does is create unskippable cutscenes that you kind of just have to live through. This is great for someone who loves being really invested in the story right then and there, and can experience it first person from any angle they want. But for someone like me, it just left me revving my engine, running around getting ready to play the actual game. It almost made me miss cutscenes, because at least you could skip those most of the time. I just wanted to run, and this game slows you to a crawl pretty often, just to sit there and talk at you. It's really cool when they use these moments to teach you a new mechanic, but they rarely do. It's mostly just to spew exposition in your general direction and hope you're listening, which usually I was not. However, what I couldn't not pay attention to is just how brown this game is. I'm sure it was a stylistic choice, or maybe even a limitation of the time, but wow, this game is 70s bland looking 80% of the time. A color palette which they shamelessly stole from Borderlands 5 years before it came out. Okay, why do I keep making so many Borderlands references? But it is bland with a capital B. None of the environments were even close to stimulating me visually. However, the gameplay more than made up for it. A lot of the sounds have been returned from the first game, which was welcome. The brain-tickling gun sounds and the amount of memes I've heard use, specifically the Half-Life 2 death sound, definitely lifted the experience for me a bit. Which is lame and zoomer, but I don't know. It added a lot to the experience, honestly. In my head, there was so much jam-packed into the 8-hour runtime of this game, I often get the different parts of the game confused. What I can say for sure, though, is I have 4 favorite mechanics that really stood out to me, which I will dub Car, Gravity Gun, Boss, and Shoot. Let's start with Car. In this game, there are 2 vehicles. Both I enjoyed thoroughly. First, you have the hovercraft. This thing you get pretty early in the game, and it's used to get you through the canals. The hovercraft starts as a way to run away from enemies, but later you get a weapon on it, which becomes a way to fight back. It's smooth and slick and nearly impossible to flip over. Almost. You end up loving this thing, and have to solve multiple puzzles to get it from one place to another just to keep it. Could you abandon it and just go without it? Sure, but it's essentially a power-up that trivializes the entire level. And above all, it's a blast to use. They really nailed the controls on what is usually a slippery and contentious vehicle in most games. I loved it until I literally couldn't use it anymore. Then there was the Dune Buggy. This thing comes equipped with a GAT right out the gate, which made me fall in love with it immediately. Its speed boost feels fantastic. The controls are sticky and fun. The unlimited submachine gun ammo in the back is OP. It absolutely annihilates anyone you shoot with it. And above all, it has little to no rules. If you want to move it somewhere, it goes. Car is amazing. We love Car. Next comes the Gravity Gun. Just yes. The uses for this thing are damn near endless. So much so that they should make an entire Half-Life game where this is the only weapon you have. From throwing barrels to saw blades to grenades to cars to people. I don't know, this thing is just awesome, and I can easily see the reason for this entire game existing being an excuse to show off this gun and the fantastic physics engine around it. I love it. There's something I do with it in the next game that I'm excited to talk about, but enough gushing about this thing. Otherwise, this video is gonna somehow be even longer than it already is. Let's move on to Boss. The bosses of this game, if you're okay with me calling them that, were awesome. The first interaction with the Flyboy was cool and memorable for me. This thing, I don't know, I'll just call it Mama, was really cool, and there was actually a few of them. Then there were these things. I have no idea how they're able to balance on 3 legs, but good for them. They figured it out, and your job is to make them unfigure it out. They literally can only take damage from explosives though, which makes the fights with them super unique. There aren't too many, they aren't too hard, and they all feel like the arena you were given to complete the fights in are thought out and dynamic. Bosses in this game feel great. And lastly, I want to talk about Shoot.
I be in the mall, bitch, tell me what's up. Better meet me in the middle so you're not stuck up. I ain't fucking with no riches, you know I'm a checker. Why you lying for forgiveness, I'ma call you buttercup. I be sleeping in the day, I be ready all night. I got Beazle on my shoulder, he gon' hit you out of spite. I'ma tell you how I level up the ethers with the lights. Double down on all the bullshit with this feeling through the night.
The guns in this game feel out of this goddamn world. From the first second of using the pistol, I knew this game was a massive leap to another dimension when it comes to firearms. The Magnum returns to titillate, the submachine gun makes me want to be a sub for it, the pulse rifle, dear lord, the pulse rifle. This thing was my bread and butter, my spam and eggs, my fucking pepperoni and whipped cream. This thing was amazing, and my go-to at nearly every junction I had ammo for it. Call me Soldier 76. The shotgun was better. It was good. Compared to the Half-Life 1 shotgun, it was a godsend, but I often found myself rather low on ammo for it. However, when I did have ammo for it, it was still just good. I liked it, but I don't know. It felt kind of lacking. Well, except for the mission it's given to you in, Ravenholm, which I could make an entire video on by itself, but I kind of just want to lightly touch on it. To those who already know about Ravenholm, they already know why it's the best thing in the world. To those who haven't played it, they decided to make a horror mission in the game, and it's goddamn awesome. They absolutely nailed it. It's the best mission in the game. It introduces a few new enemies too, such as the poisoned head crab, which puts you on 1 HP temporarily and scares the shiznit out of you the first time you get hit by it. They also added Nightmare. Great level design just bleeds throughout this entire mission. Oh right, shoot. We were on shoot. What's next? The crossbow. It's better, but still meh. The grenades in this game are actually awesome. They feel like what should be the standard for how grenades should feel in every game. I found myself using them so often, instead of having to scroll or hit a number to find them, I just put the hotkey for them on G. I love the grenades. Lastly, the rocket launcher. I use this for 2 reasons: killing bosses and accidentally swapping to it and shooting the wall. Overall, it's situational, but great. When they give you ammo for it, they give you all the ammo for it. There's also one more weapon that I will talk to you more about in the next game. There were many super cool mechanics in this game, like the magnet thing I mentioned earlier, or like buoyancy? I don't know. It's weird to think of it as a mechanic, but it's awesome. Then there's also tension and plug. I guess what I'm trying to say by these is they did a really good job integrating the physics engine into the game in a smooth and satisfying way that often had me going from scratching my head into sudden oh moments that made me feel like I was really the guy with the crowbar doing the crowbar things. This game is great, easily an 8 out of 10. Honestly, there were 2 major things holding this game from a 9, and that of course is from someone who only plays games for the gameplay. Those things were the graphics and the enemy variety. There are quite a few different enemies you get to fight, yes, but the heavy majority of what you deal with is literally guy with gun, slow guy with no gun, bug that jumps at you, small bug that jumps at you. Oh, and little flying fuckers sometimes. But legit 80% of what you kill are one of these things. This game was carried hard by using those common enemies in a variety of different environments. Very well, obviously, but I do wish they mixed it up a bit more. Of course, it's a personal thing, but I just like when I have 30 different enemies on screen and I need to understand the weak points and positions around each one on the fly. Still, amazing game. Easy 8 out of 10. Highly recommend. There we go. All done part 1 of the 3 Half-Life 2 games. God, this is confusing. Now, we move on to yes, Half-Life 2 Episode 1 being the second part of the Half-Life 2 trilogy. Sounds about right considering how Valve names things. Anyway, my opinions about the game are weird. Apparently, this was the runt of the litter of the trilogy. I didn't know until my chat told me. I loved Half-Life 2 Part 1. I thought it was out of this world amazing. I was told this literally as I was starting the game. There's an achievement to beat Half-Life 2 Episode 1 firing exactly 1 bullet. What? And I was so taken aback by the prospect of playing the game in such a drastically different way, I gave it a try. That, mixed with this apparently being the shortest of the bunch, and me going through the series a lot faster than I initially thought, apparently I'm a gamer and play games a bit faster than the average Joseph, made me want to do it. So I played this game first time using only the shit of the ground, Alyx as a companion, the explosives in my backpack, and a single bullet. And let me tell you, it was a fucking blast. I had a beyond amazing time completing all the puzzles, doing all the parkour, and getting through all the tough, mainly indoor activities with my best friend Gravity Gun and Grenade. This game has some of the best puzzles in Half-Life, period. I was having a great time and was sad when it ended. This game is short, so it doesn't anywhere near overstay its welcome. Except for the last level. You have to escort these people back and forth, and it felt like after the 2nd or 3rd or 4th time, it would be enough. But no, it's like 5 or 6 times. And God forbid you die on one of these runs. It feels like you have to carry these same 3 people back and forth like 1,000 times. And it was kind of annoying. Other than that, the game felt so succinct. And I'm pretty sure I would have been able to complete it in like 70% of the time. Just if I could use a gun. So that's kind of crazy. I could easily recommend this game and its neato puzzles or set pieces. I rate this game a 6 out of 10. Also, I got the achievement. Now, on to... Okay, the third Half-Life 2 game, Half-Life 2 Episode 2. I didn't like this one at all, actually. Like, not a single part. It just kind of feels like 4 hours of slowly, go here, be talked at, wave defense. There are some parts that are different, but I don't know. Everything had already been done, and this game really didn't bring anything new to the table. I was honestly bored out of my mind in this game, and it felt so incredibly slow. There was a few fun moments, like this Giga Chad handling everything on his own, and this guy trying to pee-pee slap you. Me at the glory hole in a gay club? Oh, but all those moments were heavily overshadowed by the immense boredom I had over the entire game. It all felt so tired. Like at first I thought it was just because I had played 2 games in the same environment with the same characters and guns. But no, I enjoyed those games. And I knew I was onto something when halfway through the game, I literally said out loud, "And here comes the wave defense." And then combined soldiers started rappelling down from above. Like this game is so remarkably formulaic and recycled. If you're someone like me not interested in the story, there's nothing to grab onto. And to top it all off, there's this awful, terrible, bottom of the barrel, time padding, zero effort, life wasting end section that goes on for like an hour. And I swear to you, this is it. I'm going to spell out the entire gameplay loop for this hour-long section. Kill smaller guy, pick up bomb, throw it big guy, shoot bomb. Repeat that ad nauseum. No change in enemy location, strategy, frequency, nothing. Do that for like an hour, and then you get the relief of the game just fucking ending. This dude dies, who I barely liked. This girl cries, who I didn't like at all. I think she liked me though, and the father wanted me to bang her or something. I don't know. Listen to this line.
To do our part.
Dad?
Can you blame an old man for wanting grandkids?
Sus. I don't know, this game wasn't my cup of G Fuel. I'm sorry, there isn't more I can say without repeating myself. I give this game a 4 out of 10, a below average experience overall, and one I for sure will not see myself revisiting. I know this will cause some crying in the comment section. So go join Alyx over her dad's corpse and maybe the tears will revive him.
I'm at the go!
Speaking of Alyx and tears, let's move straight on to... Okay, so first and foremost, I'm going to try my very hardest to just talk about the game during this part of the review, or whatever the hell you want to call this style of video. If I am being honest, my overall impressions of Half-Life Alyx during this play session were negative. However, I don't believe it's because of the game, and that general negativity might be reflected in some of the gameplay you see in the background. I believe it was because I was streaming the game. Streaming VR is not for everyone, and I have confirmed during this playthrough it is not for me. This game took about 12 hours to beat over the course of 4 days and 4 streams. I try my hardest to keep the length of my streams as close to 5 hours as possible, sometimes to my detriment. However, the mathletes at home may be realizing that 12 divided by 4 is 3, not 5. That is because streaming VR murdered me. And after this 30-second rant, I won't talk about it again. This game destroyed my CPU and GPU while streaming it, which I know is asking a lot, but it's the only game I've ever had this issue with. Usually, if it's to a lesser extent, it's fine, but playing VR with a headset on at 20 FPS is literally vomit-inducing. I couldn't handle it for more than a few seconds at a time. Every time a loading screen popped up, it would literally, no joke, add about 10 seconds of stream delay, meaning that after a few hours, I could have a full minute of stream delay. And for a small, dyslexic streamer like me, who has to glue his eyes to his chat, or I die instantly IRL and lose half my viewers, checking chat was a nightmare. I couldn't do most regular redeems, and overall, it was the least fun game to actually be a performer for. Okay, rant over, onto the game. Wow. This game is fucking awesome. Even through the fog of war, I can see how many genuinely genius ideas they pumped out while still trying to prove to the world, hey guys, look, we can still make games. The controls are smooth, and although you have to get used to them, like most good games, they really make you feel like Spider-Man. The gunplay is out of this world, dear lord. By the way, this isn't one of those videos where I don't talk about Jeff's lair and don't spoil it to you so you can play it yourself. I'm going to be telling you everything about why this mission is not only the best mission in every Half-Life game, but the best mission in the history of VR. Anyway, back to the gunplay. It's so fun. Making reloading an actual mechanic in a video game, rather than just making it a button press, is usually met with acclaim. Hell, just making it so you keep the unspent ammo as a separate magazine is often met with a, hey, that's kinda cool. And that line coming from gamers is essentially like getting your first Michelin star. By the way, side note, MKBHD is so famous that tech reviewers brag if he literally says anything about their tech. Who do you think holds that same acclaim for game reviewing YouTubers? I don't know. Leave what you think in the comment section below. Also like and subscribe so I can keep making brain leak for you guys. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The reloading in this game is fluid and often some of my favorite parts of combat. And get this, in between combat, using literally everything you had to offer during a crazy encounter and finally getting a second to breathe afterwards is great. Then spending the next 15 seconds walking to the next location and reloading all of your stuff gives you just the right amount of scratch to the brain itch ADHD plants within your meat CPU. Throughout the game, you pick up these tasty little treats that are everywhere, and you use them for upgrading your weapons. All the best gun upgrades in the game are for ammo capacity or reloading. I was afraid this would take one of my favorite parts of the game away from me, but no, the absolute geniuses decided to make it so it just changes how you reload, often making that little part I was talking about in between fights even more interactive. It's not that you reload less, it's that you now front load your reloading, meaning you do, let's say, the equivalent of 3 reloads at once, and then have have all that ammo in the gun at hand. What game does that? The amount of balance that keeps while also still adding quality of life. Mwah! Also, look at the way this shotgun reloads. Boop, 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 boop. That's so goddamn cool. However, I did have 2 complaints. For one, the reload on the SMG is too quiet, or simple, or unsubstantial, whatever verbiage suits you. So randomly, I would just be like, why isn't my gun shooting? Meanwhile, this little circle is just slowly moving into place, quiet as a whisper, leaving me looking like an idiot out of cover. It only lasts a second, but it happened enough to piss me off. And second, often I would have to slap my hands together pretty hard in real life to be able to get the shotgun shells to actually sit in this little frame here. I am pretty good with pain, but I was legitimately worried for the structural integrity of my controllers while doing it. In hindsight, it's probably because this game was designed with the intended use case to be for the Valve Index, and I was using the Quest 2 with the Quest link. As you see, the circles hit each other, and in the heat of battle, I smacked them together easily a dozen times. Not really a problem with the game though. However, a few times it did get in the way of me putting things in my wrist, so I'll just mention it as a beige flag for now. No issues with the pistol though. This thing was great the entire game, and if it was literally the only gun, I'd still be happy. Keeping on the theme of weapons, I want to go over the grenades. Just yes. They gave them to you when you needed them, and throwing them nearly always felt fun, easy, and worth it. All of the Half-Life games make using grenades kind of a chore, but in this game where everything takes that little bit of extra effort, it fit right in, which sometimes was awesome. Other times made me feel like I should hand in my gamer card for a free Frosty at Wendy's. What? What is that? There was also this alternate grenade, which you had to steal from the grabby hand, which was fun in its own right, but there's no feeling like having 2 empty wrist slots and seeing that iconic yellow. Oh right, the wrists. Instead of having pockets on your sides, like in many other VR games, your pockets are on your wrists. Of course you couldn't put a barrel or something, but you could put ammo, grenade, heals, an objective thing. You could put basically anything in them. They're great. They're not only letting you hoard things for clutch situations, but for freeing up your hands during certain objectives as well. Something I'm not quite sure how to bring up is this game lets you be a gamer. For the most part, the objectives are set in stone, and you have to complete them in a certain way. But some of the puzzles let you get a little bit creative, using the freedom of VR. It was a bit too linear at times, but for the most part, I had a hard time not feeling immersed in the environment. I mean, it's VR, so I really didn't mind 99% of the time. Speaking of immersed, I want to bring up that mission I alluded to earlier, Jeff's Lair, or I believe it's just called Jeff. I want you to imagine this. You're in a game, and you're placed into an arena with a character that cannot see, but has perfect hearing, moves slowly, has unlimited health, and instant kills you if he touches you. Put that situation in literally any game, and you're going to have a good time. Make it a horror level, and throw the player in VR where they have to throw things to distract the monster, cover their mouth in real life to avoid being heard, and get so close to the monster, you can smell his breath, and you have concocted a perfect potion of playability that probably puts most poorly positioned so-called horror games in their place. They nailed it with this mission, and honestly, if you only play one mission in the entire Half-Life series, let it be this one. That's not to detract from the rest of the game, however. This game has fantastic mission variety. Most of the time, yes, the main gameplay loop is indeed something as simple as shoot your way out of the area, solve this puzzle you've done 30 times, but this time it's a little bit harder, or platform with a 5 out of 10 movement controls for the 1000th time. But if I'm being honest, I really didn't mind. It felt fun, and this is the only game out of the entire series I actually intend to replay. Not counting Half-Life Decay when that's finished. I want to play this game in a room built for VR, not on stream, and with a much more powerful system. It really is a game mostly limited by peripherals, not the game itself. The sound design of this game is probably the best in the series. It's ironic saying that considering they reuse a lot of the sounds from other games. However, the spatial sound mastery of the team over at Valve knows no bounds. Not once was I unsatisfied with how something sounded. The voice acting was top notch. A lot of the lines are straight up Marvel quip level.
Alyx,
Calm down.
You're gonna need a gun. Don't worry, it's unloaded. It's unloaded now.
Okay, well, for the most part, all the characters felt well written and acted beautifully. Even the ones spoken by the Combine during battles. Speaking of which, let's get to the enemies. Most of the time, you're going to be fighting the same 4 enemies. Headcrabs, zombies, Combine lackeys, and these drones. These drones are easy and fun to fight. The Combine lackeys are super fun to fight because they swap position and make it so you have to utilize cover. There's also this shielded variant, which ruins your day if you get too close, and has to be dealt with a bit more tactically. They aren't too hard if you let them come to you instead of rushing them, and they become trivial if you have grenades. There are zombies, which come in 2 variants. The first one has a regular head crab on his head, which 50% of the time, the head crab dies alongside the zombie, and the other half of the time it doesn't, so you have to kill the zombie and the head crab when that happens, which wastes ammo, and was always annoying. You may be saying like, oh, just shoot the head crab and the zombie, and it'll kill both of them. It's just a skill issue. But no, I swear to God, there was zero consistency. I would shoot the head crab directly in the top of the head with a shotgun, and the boy would be fine. Like, the zombie would die, but the head crab would just fall on the ground and be fine. And then there were some times where I'd shoot the zombie in the legs or something, and the head crab would just die alongside. They'd both fall to the ground dead. And I was so confused, I even started purposely shooting the zombies that had little green blobs on them. So there's these zombies with the green blobs on them, which they're instant kills when you shoot them. And I would shoot just the zombies with the green blobs, and then I started recording if the head crab would die after shooting the green blobs, and it was a perfect 50-50 on if the head crab would die or not. I don't know if it was bugged or if it was pure RNG, but it was getting on my nerves. There were also zombies with armored head crabs on them, and I feel like the head crabs that were on those zombies never died. Like, they always fell down, and I always had to kill them afterwards, which at least that felt consistent. Since we're on the topic, let's talk about head crabs in general. There are 3 different types. 2 are familiar, the regular and the poison ones. Then there is a new one, this armored one. This one is pretty cool in concept, considering you can't shoot it for most of its life, and you can only do damage by hitting its soft underbelly. I say in concept because the majority of the time, you find yourself just waiting for it to do its little predictable raw XD and then popping it with a single shot. See, the underbelly isn't just the only place you can do damage to it, it's a crit zone, meaning even one bullet from the pistol game ends it instantly. They're for sure a cool enemy, but after the first 5 or so, the next 60 become too easy. There's actually what I would consider a mini boss in the game as well. There's this little lightning dog that has mondo health that can take over dead bodies to make a new type of zombie enemy where you have to shoot these pustules on it. They aren't very hard, honestly. Most of the gameplay consists of waiting, but it still feels intense, just for how tanky these little buggers are. I often found myself finishing the fight with like a single bullet left. Also, antlions make their return to this game for a few levels. They are really neat to fight because you have to shoot their limbs Dead Space style. I didn't mention them till now because you only fight them for like a level or 2, and for the most part, they're relatively easy to dispatch. They have regular ones who rush you, and then these electric ones just mortar you the entire fight. If you're surrounded, they can feel like bullet sponges as you waste your ammo spraying and hoping to hit their limbs. But if you really take your time, they can be fragged in just a few shots. And the few times I actually did it, felt amazing. So I have almost all positive things to say about this game, but there was one big thing I really didn't enjoy. The final level of the game gives you the hand zappy powers of the Vortigaunt. This one. And it's pretty cool. For like 2 seconds, until you realize it's janky as fuck. They set it up in the last part of the last mission to make it seem like you're this unstoppable god slowly working your way to the last parts of the vault you spent the entire game trying to get into. But you just get instant killed the second you pick a corner with max health. And these things aren't exactly accurate at range, or even really able to be shot at range. Most of the time you're waiting for them to come to you. And if there are more than 2 enemies, or God forbid you use both shots for one enemy, you get bum rushed while trying to reload, or whatever you call this. I'm sure it's also a skill issue thing, but that's what really annoyed me. The entire game, you're building up this muscle memory and getting better with the weapons you've had for the last dozen hours. And because of that, they send more and more so you could use these newfound abilities. Then they give you this entirely new weapon you need to learn how to use on the spot, then to send the same amount of enemies they were sending at you when you had 3 fully leveled weapons. It just felt torturous to me, and I didn't enjoy it one bit. Not to mention I died like 6 or 7 times during this entire interaction, putting my stream behind like a full minute and a half. Okay, won't mention stream anymore, sorry. Yet again, the worst part about a Half-Life game is the last gameplay section. I'm sure there are people who live by this level, but goddamn did it just miss for me. And kind of left the game on a sour note. This game also had some extremely unexpected after credits, making it seem like they opened it up for a Half-Life 3, or even better, a Half-Life Alyx 2, or possibly a Half-Life Gordon? We'll see. Either way, I felt satisfied that this was the end of the Half-Life series, or at least I was interested to see where they take the game next, which I count as a success. If you're streaming and have subpar equipment and space, this game is easily a 7 out of 10. However, if you're playing alone, have the space, and let's be honest, money, this game gets the highest rating of all the games, with a legendary 9.5 out of 10. I really did like this game. When I was looking at what Half-Lives to play during this video, there were 2 that really stuck out to me on whether or not I should play them. The first was Half-Life Lost Coast, which was apparently a 30-minute long tech demo of an unreleased section of Half-Life 2. However, because it was a tech demo that didn't introduce any new mechanics, weapons, or enemies, I saw no point in writing an entire review on a 30-minute experience. The other game I wasn't too sure about was Jesus Christ, this game has some controversy around it. I know just including this game in the video is going to triple my dislikes, but I felt it was only right to include it. This game is essentially the modern day, endorsed by Valve, spiritual successor to the original Half-Life game. It was entirely fan-made and released on Steam in 2020, just a few weeks before the Big Sick. It only felt right that after weeks of playing Half-Life, we're starting right where we began. Before I start making up arguments and excuses, I'm just going to get into the review, and you can voice your distaste by yelling at me in the comments. This game is pretty fun. It's for the most part the same game as the first Half-Life, just on a better engine with better sound design and graphics, which for the most part is cool, I guess. I mean, I already played it, so what's the... Zen. Zen is the whole reason this game exists. The first 6 hours of the game are just filler. The devs of Black Mesa saw that Half-Life 1 did the job it was supposed to, and copied their homework. However, when they noticed that the answer to question 7 was wrong, instead of copying and moving on with their lives, they wrote a 20-page dissertation with credible sources and a sponsored recommendation from a reputable Swedish university. They went all in. They pushed W so hard, there were not only one, but multiple times I was literally left jaw-dropped. And that never happens to me in games. Zen alone makes the entire price tag worth it. And even though it's only a few hours long, it made playing through essentially the same game as it did a few weeks ago so very worth it. The controls in the game feel modern and solid. Really no complaints. However, this is the first time I'm complaining about sound design. The weapons feel weak and unsubstantial sound-wise. And the voice acting is, well...
Most of them were government property. As for the suit, I think you've earned it.
Very indie. And the music, you're listening to it right now, it bangs in its own right, don't get me wrong, but it's just not Half-Life. It is its own thing. I think maybe literally once in my entire play session did it feel like it was actually fitting in with what was going on. Other than that, it felt like your friend put in cat when you asked for stall. It was conflicting because I really was enjoying it, but weeks of Half-Life music and sound design felt thrown out the window. A true misunderstanding. But I guess it's sort of like good food you didn't order. Like I wanted steak, but I'm still gonna eat this pizza. They added a few new enemies that are essentially just reskins of the old ones. And this video is long enough, so I'm just gonna try to respect your time and wrap this up. Black Mesa is essentially Half-Life 1 with modern graphics, controls, polish, and has a DLC add-on to make Zen a more fun experience. There are too many puzzles that are basically just plugging stuff in, but the price tag of $20 is well justified in the content presented currently. The final boss is a literal bullet hell, and in my opinion, it's some of the most fun I've had using the Half-Life recipe. This game gets a 6 out of 10 and a solid recommend. And that's it. I didn't expect this video to be over 45 minutes long, but here we are. The next game series I'm reviewing will be the Dishonored games, so hopefully that video will be much shorter since there are only a few of those. If you watched all the way into the end, I thank you and love you for supporting my work. Even if you didn't like it, thank you for watching the whole thing and at least give me a chance. If you have any game series you want to recommend, please leave them down in the comments. I'd love to hear your ideas. And feel free to check out my other Sipats, even though there's only one right now. I stream Monday through Thursday, 6 to 11 p.m. EST. Come yell at me or just have a good time. This has been Airhead. Have a good one. So when I was looking through the sound files of Half-Life Alyx, I noticed there was this creepy sound that reminded me a lot of Cave Sound number 19. Listen to both of these and tell me I'm not crazy. I don't know, they both creepy as hell.